Make way for the great analyst from the mothership, Jeff Van Gundy, former head coach. He was on the call Celtics-Nets games 1 and 3 and joins us now. What's the big difference in the Celtics and Nets and why the Celtics are up in a commanding fashion?
Well, I thought actually Brooklyn played an outstanding first two games. On the road, they gave themselves chances to win in both games. They shot the ball better than 50% in both games against a great Celtics defense. So I really liked the way they played the first two games. It was game three. It was the turnovers combined with Durant obviously not playing, or Irving playing particularly well, and the other guys, the complementary players around them other than Bruce Brown, didn't have good nights either. So it was a bad night all the way around, and one they could ill afford.
Would you sign up Kyrie for a long-term contract if you're the Nets?
Well, it's tough choices now, because right now their depth has been compromised. Joe Harris has been out most of the year. So very good for them from a shooting standpoint, good rebounder, and he's got stability to him. And then, Ben Simmons, if you're going to say you're going to trade Harden, and in this 1 year, what you're going to get back for Harden is Seth Curry, who's hobbled, and Andre Drummond. That's a lose from a talent standpoint too. So I think you have to look at your roster in totality. I know this because guys don't play as much now, either minutes in the game or over the course of the season. You have to have quality depth. And that's what right now the Celtics have built. They've built a strong 8-9 man rotation. And right now the Nets don't have enough depth due to injury to be able to put it together and make a championship run.
Would you sign Kyrie long-term?
I'd have to look at all those factors, O'Dan. I mean, obviously he's had durability issues for many different reasons, and my team has had durability issues. The talent is obviously a unique offensive talent, the handle and all that, shot making. He hasn't played very well in the last couple games here after a great second half in game one. I just in general, forgetting Kyrie for the second, I think you always have to ask yourself, and I don't know what he'd get. Let's say he'd make $40 million. Are you better getting one $40 million player, or are you better getting, not as good as the $40 million, but having two really good $20 million players? I think you have to think about how you want to surround Simmons and Durant, because those two are there, and you're going to have to build around those two.
Let's go back a week or so ago. It felt like the Nets, they're saying, hey, Ben's, he's been pain-free. He's been working out. Like, why are they setting him up to be the fall guy from the standpoint of, oh, wait, he's not playing again? Why not just say, we believe he's out. We're not expecting him to play in this series. Instead of, hey, this could, maybe tonight. Like, I just don't understand the philosophy unless they're trying to kind of push him into, come on, let's go, let's play, let's suck it up here.
Well, Dan, I think at least what I've read, those are the sources saying that he's, on track to play in game 4. When we've talked to Steve Nash prior to the games that we've done, he's always said, I think it's too early to say. And so the reports that were coming out of whatever camp never matched up with what Steve Nash was saying to us, which was, hold on, he hasn't even practiced yet. And again, I have no idea what's going on. People who, I think it's hard to make these hard and fast pronouncements that he's either letting his team down or he's injured. Like, none of us really know if he's truly injured, if it's a mental health situation, or he could play, he's just not comfortable to play. And so I find it a really odd situation, and I certainly am going to remain judgment-free on him and what he stands for.
Yeah, it just feels like, and all Steve Nash has to say is, look, he's not playing. That's it. And that if he does come back, then we would have said, oh, wow, okay, hey, he's progressing farther along. Like Zion Williamson. Why is Zion not playing? I mean, can he play 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes? Why would you not put him back in, or why is he not being put back in?
Well, that's an interesting question right there. I think right now, I think New Orleans is going to win that series. Once Booker went out, and let's say he can't come back, I think they have, even though they were 10 games under 500 during the regular season, and Phoenix was 64-18, I think offensive talent-wise, New Orleans has the better team with the addition of McCollum and Valanciunas in the offseason. But if you throw in Zion for 15 minutes a game off the bench, then I think they become the prohibitive favorite over these last 3 games. So I've got to believe that, Williamson just isn't healthy enough to play, because why wouldn't you want to play if you were healthy enough in the playoffs?
But I also look back to Michael Jordan's second year in the league. He breaks his foot. If we fast forward to now, Michael Jordan doesn't play in the playoffs probably. And really that was his coming out party when he faced the Celtics in the Garden and had that dominating series and they lost. But now it's about caution, load management, all of that. So I'm just curious. And it's not, hey, the guys in my day era were tougher. It's just the philosophy, I think, is different than it used to be.
Oh, it's absolutely different. But it's not just different in the playoffs, Dan. You know that. It's different in how you work in the summer. Sometimes I think we take more pride in how we work out in the summer than how we play in the winter. I always hear about guys having great summers. We used to make light of one guy when back in the late 90s, early 2000s, that we competed against. All they ever would say about him was, what a great summer this guy had. He used to always say, well, how about having a great April and May for one? I just think there's a lot different. Caution is a word that, is, very in vogue. And I think the one thing that used to be asked was, well, if this was a playoff game, could he go?
Yeah.
That's out now too. Like, it's just different. It's not different, bad or good. The league looks at playing through things much differently than 15, 20 years ago. That may be good or that may be bad. It depends on your perspective.
Talking to Jeff Van Gundy, the analyst for ESPN and ABC. I brought this up with Commissioner Silver a couple of weeks ago, where I said, how about you just say you got to play in a certain number of games or a certain number of minutes to qualify for first team, second team, third team, all NBA. All your postseason awards, you have to check in at a certain level. Therefore, you're going to get those players because of all the bonuses that are attached to first, second, third team, or winning the MVP or defensive player of the year, all of those things. What do you think of that idea?
Love the idea. Unfortunately, because like you just said, bonuses are tied to it all. You'd have to work that out with the Players Association, and they're never going to give on that. But I do think going forward in the next collective bargaining, you have to, I know it sounds strange because you don't give incentives in other professions to show up at work. Like, hey, today, if you show up at work, we're going to give you, the chance to be all first team fire department. But in this situation, the way the trends are heading, and I think in a negative way as far as for fans, they really don't know oftentimes going to a game, buying tickets for a game, tuning into a game, who's going to play. So I think to give extra incentive to either games played, minutes played for all the awards, I think is an outstanding idea that I think the commissioner should think very long about trying to include in the next collective bargaining agreement.
I think you should be able to buy star insurance. So you play an overage on your ticket, and let's say you're showing up to see Steph Curry, and he doesn't play, then you get your money back. Or Luka. You're showing up to see Luka, and you've got that star insurance. What do you think?
I like it. I think it's also unfortunate that we're having that conversation, but I listen, I do think we have to protect the customer and the consumer. Right now we're on this high that, people are watching, they're excited about NBA basketball, but we can never take for granted the fans and that they drive the freight. And I don't think Adam Silver takes them for granted. I hope we as teams and as a league don't take them for granted, because once you're not giving them the product they think is warranted for the price, obviously they're gonna spend their money elsewhere. So I think we have to have, I don't know if it's insurance. And I think, Dan, I don't know about you, but I think fans understand the difference between legit injury and just taking a night off when they choose to take a night off.
Yeah, but we can't ask that question, Jeff. We're not allowed to ask Ben Simmons, hey, why aren't you playing?
You're not. Unfortunately, because now even, and it used to, hey, listen, the media is a lot different too, Dan. You used to be held to account after every game. You didn't get a choice. The reporters were allowed into the locker room, and you could run away, but it was harder back then to run away. Now with the Zooms, teams don't make people available. They don't have to answer for either their play oftentimes. And that's why I admire the players that win or loss, good game or bad game, they stand before the media, and they're not just there when they're giving them praise. They're there when they're taking on hard questions. And that's why I admired what Durant did. It had to be hard, after game 3, to be disappointed in the result in your own play, but to stand there and take it, that's what part of your pay is for, your responsibility is for. But now it's harder. And frankly, a lot of the questions are more softballish because they are relying on players and the players' agents for leaks and sources off the record. So a lot has changed in the climate of how the game is covered too.
Is James Harden getting old right before our very eyes?
Well, I think he certainly hasn't played to the MVP level that we're accustomed to. And that was in Brooklyn and in Philly. But I would not underestimate his greatness. I always thought the dynamic between he and Embiid was going to be a challenge, because Harden has a style that's very unique in how he dominates the ball. And Embiid, when they play through him, whether it's in the high post, the elbow, or the low post, is absolutely dominant. So it's a hard dance to master. Actually, I think they played together exceptionally well. I think they fit together better than I thought. I just don't think Harden has been as efficient from a shooting standpoint as they need him to be if they're going to win it all.
I'll leave you with this. Bigger disappointment this season, the Lakers or the Nets?
Well, I think it all is where you start with your expectations. I never thought the Lakers were good. Like, I didn't understand the hype for their team. They have an often injured team. They took away and stripped down all depth. And I think depth is incredibly important in today's NBA because of games missed and people don't play big minutes. So my expectations for the Lakers, I can't say I didn't think they'd make the play-in. I thought they would be, an 8, 9, 10 type of team. But I'm not disappointed. I thought their roster was not very good. The Nets, on the other hand, I thought going into the year, before you knew about Irving's vaccination status and the inability to play, Harden's, I didn't know he was going to be discontent. And all of that being said, January, I think it was 23rd, the Nets were in first place in the Eastern Conference at 29-16. And then Durant's injury wiped him out. So you took, Irving's vaccination status, Harden's discontent, which led to Simmons not being able to play, Joe Harris being out all year, then Durant. They just got hit with a tidal wave of roster issues that truly could not be overcome. And I think Boston is the best team in the NBA. I think they will win it if they can stay healthy.
Wow.
I think they're that good defensively and roster construction wise. And so I think they got a horrible first round opponent as well. So everything that could go wrong so far for the Nets has gone wrong.
What's the coolest thing in your office?
Let me look here. My Mount Kilimanjaro picture, Dan. I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro about 8 years ago. And when I say I whimpered to the finish line, I basically had to be dragged to the finish line because we made a midnight walk up was the last day on like 2 hours sleep. And the guys who were our guides, they basically told the friend I did it with, you got to go up and see your guy. He's having a mental breakdown because at like 4 a.m. in the cold of Mount Kilimanjaro, I was ready to break.
Did you cry?
I didn't, but literally, if it had been 5 more steps, I might have. And then the climb down was actually harder than the climb up, and they were just dragging me down. I mean, they were just like, this dude is weak-minded, and I was. So, that I made it all the way to the top. Just, I worked for this guy, Dan, like long ago, named Gordon Chiese. He was a longtime assistant with the Utah Jazz, but I worked with him at Providence College. And he used to always tell players, despite yourself, you're going to be great. And that was me on that climb. Despite myself, I made it to the top.
I never understood why we don't celebrate the Sherpas more. Sir Edmund Hillary, I don't give a damn about you. It's the Sherpa who was carrying all your gear.
Listen, I could have paid, I think it was like $100 more for them, so I didn't have to carry the 50-pound backpack that I was carrying. I'm like, I waste money all the time. I didn't spend it on that, all right, because I was trying to be tough. That was stupid. But what used to kill me is we would get up in the morning. I think we're flying up on this hike, and these dudes are breaking down the camp, and they're like sprinting by us, and they finished the next day's camp. They had to be there 2 hours early. They're cooking. I'm like, how do they do? These people are superhuman.
Well, congratulations on not crying.
I want to say this because my friend is probably, if he listens to you every day, he's out there listening, Chris Lohman, and he's saying, yeah, but he almost did. I almost had him broken. Yeah, barely.
You are a warrior. # warrior.
Hashtag weak-minded.
Thank you, Jeff. Safe travels, and we appreciate your time.
All right, take care, Dan.
That's Jeff Van Gundy of the Mothership.